The original Brig Amity, at least the one we're concerned with here, is thought to have been built at the shipyards on St John's Island in Newfoundland, Canada in 1816. The name Amity means friendly relations. She was constructed of black birch and pitch pine. She was a snow brig, strangely spelt S-N-O-W, with two main masts and a trailing boom connected to the rear mast and leading astern. The ship could carry 142 tons, and she was designed primarily as a cargo ship. Her likely crew would have been a captain, first officer, second officer, and 4 seamen. The first 7 years she sailed between America and the Caribbean, and in 1822 she crossed the Atlantic to Scotland. She was purchased by the Muir brothers and used to carry cargo to and from the West Indies. The following year she was purchased by the Ralston family. The plan was for the family to sail to Australia and settle there. They did this the same year. On April the 15th, 1824, they arrived in Hobart and then sold the Amity to the New South Wales government. The government sent settlers to Moreton Bay in Queensland, and once this had been accomplished, the Amity settled in to a role as a coastal transport. When the Royal Charlotte was wrecked in the Coral Sea, the Amity played a part in the rescue of her crew and passengers. The government in England decided to establish a settlement on the west coast of Australia, presumably to forestall any French ambitions to do the same. It was decided to build a settlement at King George's Sound. This would later become known as Albany. On November 9, 1826, the Amity sailed from Sydney, and after a 6-week journey that included a call-in at Hobart for repairs, the Amity arrived at King George's Sound on Christmas Day 1826. It was not until the following day that the first person stepped ashore. The likely ship's complement was 13 sailors, 23 convicts, 19 soldiers, and 3 other assorted people. Major Edmund Lockyer was in charge of establishing this settlement. The Amity returned to Sydney on the 24th of January 1827, and then continued her role as a supply and transport ship, revisiting Albany several times. The convict settlement was later overseen by Lockyer's deputy Wakefield. Later, George Sleeman and finally Captain Collette Barker were commandants of the settlement. The convicts were sent back to Sydney in 1831, and the same year the Amity was sold to private owners. She returned to making longer voyages and sailed to South Africa and then to New Zealand. Later, the Amity was used in the whaling trade, transporting whale oil and other goods. On her last voyage in June 1845, she struck a sandbank near Flinders Island in Bass Strait, and she broke apart. Luckily, her crew was rescued. Her final resting place remains a mystery, as the reef she struck was uncharted. The idea of building a replica was first floated in 1972, but there were no original plans to work from. The basic dimensions were known, but the work had to be carried out based on the design of other brigs, for which plans did exist. So it is that the ship you see today is not identical to the original Amity, but is a close approximation. The ship opened to the public in December 1976, 100 years to the day since the first person stepped ashore from the ship onto the soil of Albany.